welcome to Layback with Betfair. Joined by the A-team, we're back.
Hello and welcome to a bit of a new version of Layback with Betfair. We're a little bit less around the television screens. We're doing it a little bit more relaxed, sort of relaxed racing. I'm your host, Karl Kaldawi. This week, Tom Haylock couldn't make it for this new and improved version, just in the quieter months, but with the equine genius himself, Liam Clancey. And I actually haven't had much time chatting with you, Clance, about horses and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this.
Yeah, it'll be an exciting next half an hour or so for us as we enter the summer period of racing. And I think relaxed racing is very much the ticket at this time of year. Linen shirts and shorts, and that's the way to go.
Yeah, that's you in summer, isn't it? Well, I mean, the punters started really diving into layback with Betfair sort of later in the season, and there was a lot of asks and feedback to continue on. And obviously, we wanted to give some of the great guys that produce here a bit of a break because they're working so hard. So we thought we'd do something a little bit quieter. But some of the stuff we're still going to talk through race previews. We're going to have a little bit of a wash up of the Spring Carnival. We're going to have a couple of new segments, see how they go. One I'm looking forward to, the lay streak. But before we kick anything off, I want to talk about the Spring Carnival, Clans. From your perspective, how did you go?
Yeah, it was a great Spring Carnival. There's just a lot of talking points to come out of it. I think we probably didn't have the dominant horse going into the spring like we have in previous years. I think you look into the Cox Plate last year and everyone was excited to see Animo come out and win its Cox Plate. And this year I think, we had the likes of Mr. Brightside stepping up, and we had Alligator Blood, the old war horse, and I think Fangirl probably stamped herself as a bit more of a threat in that field, but no real dominant ones. I think it was probably a great year for Romantic Warrior to come out from Hong Kong, because it was a lot of talking around the Cox Plate was about the Hong Kong horse, and in the end that was good enough to win. But yeah, I think we had other dominations. So we had the likes of Imperatrice dominate the sprinting ranks. And then we had Pride of Jenny, who was a bit of a bolter that no one predicted to go to the heights that she did. And that was kind of a feel-good story that went with it. So fascinating spring, as it always is, but a bit of a different one to previous years, I find.
You've brought up a couple there. Pride of Jenny, like going back to back, within 7 days of her first Group 1 for, the Otterbray family, which that is an incredible story. Do you know anything about that story? I don't. I'm not, I don't want to misquote and go into too much detail and get it wrong, but basically Jenny, I think, is the daughter of Tony Otterbray who passed away, and they obviously have a few Jenny horses that race in those colours. It's not their first Group 1. They had the other Jenny horse that won that Group 1 in Adelaide. But yeah, just a terrific family who's invested a lot in racing, and one of those emotional sort of stories that makes racing one of the great games, right? Punting's amazing and it's lots of fun, but yeah, also these stories, the emotional side of racing is also amazing. And then you mentioned Imperator. Surely it's the horse of the year.
Oh, I don't know whether she'll get horse of the year. That generally tends to go to the Cox Plate horses and the middle distance ones, especially around us. And having not gone to the Everest, I think might hurt Imperatrice's chances.
Do you back that decision in to not go to the Everest?
Yeah, well, I would have liked to see it go there, because I did my ass all spring laying think about it. So I would have loved to see Imperatrice go there and beat him. But, that happens, and I kind of like what they said. They just we're staying to Victoria, we're staying to the Valley. I don't think any horse, well, not to my recollection, has done the McEwen, Moya, Manicato treble before. And she didn't just do it, she dominated. So
absolutely dominated.
So it's pretty good to watch.
And she showed her versatility, hitting the front, straight racing, a bit of a no-nonsense, any place, anywhere sort of set up for Imperatrice. And it sets up an awesome autumn where she'll surely think about it at some point. You'd think that her grand final would be the TJ Smith Stakes in the autumn or something like that.
You'd think so, yeah. Very interesting to see what they do with Think About It, because obviously has had a lot of success and Group 1 success going out to the mile. And for that horse to come back and win the Everest, again, no idea how. And we'll talk about lay betting later, but not only did I lay it the win, I laid at the place. And it was just absolute monster, shocking result. But, I mean, just a really good horse. And there's a great argument to be made that, think about it, was the best horse in Australia throughout the spring. Obviously, probably came to the end of the prep late when it got beat, but I'll always be in the camp of the sprinters. I always love watching the sprinters go around. So Imperatrice, she's the horse of the spring for me.
I do love these debates. Just quickly before we move on, any bad beats for the spring that come to mind?
Now, there's probably 3 that come to mind for me. Queen of Dragons, Cup Day.
Okay.
Just got tipped out by Warmonger, who is racing this weekend, and I was like $4.80, $5. I think BSP $5.20, and notoriously difficult to find a winner on Cup Day. And I thought I'd done just that. I started kicking back on the rail and couldn't quite get it done. So that's my 3rd worst bad beat for the spring. Spacewalk, Caulfield Cup Day, and the McCafe Sprint. It ended up being a half reasonable result, but anyone who was actually on Spacewalk would be just kicking themselves because it looked to have the race absolutely beaten before Duel snuck up the inside and knocked her off. And then Spacewalk went out next start and absolutely bolted in as well. So you'd be pretty filthy if you're on Spacewalk. And number 1, Antino in the Crystal Mile.
That's basically every punter in Australia would put Antino on the top of their list,
it's
right?
It's so funny, right? Like the Tuesday before the race, we're out at breakfast with the best, and like you can't take much from those track gallops unless it's a horse that's never been there and seems to get around the place very well. Otherwise, they're all just very good horses going through their work. And I got sucked in on the one. I was like, no one's beating Antino on Saturday. They just cannot possibly beat this horse. And what did I have? I had a Bucks party that day, and we were sitting at the Rising Sun in South Melbourne. I was just full of confidence, chock full of confidence. We've got Blake Shinn on board, cannot possibly get beat. But of course, goes back to the rail, goes in, goes out, weaves in, weaves out. And Prowess, Zara as good as ever. It was just too smart and
way too
got
smart.
the jockeys and Shin on Antino was left just holding the basket.
I found like a lot of horses on that Cox Plate day were trying to find the rail and were either unlucky or had amazing wins. I know Bo Mertens was just so patient on that short price thing. Sorry, name escapes me, but it was just an absolutely wonderful ride by Bo. But yeah, Antino tried to find the rail and just couldn't quite get there. I know that it was a fair bit of money traded at the low price on Betfair.
You don't hold on to that though, because Shinny's that good. He gets the job done for you so often that sometimes you just have to cop those.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair enough. My bad beat, definitely West Wind Blows. Probably not the horse's fault. Raced fantastically in Australia in its previous starts, but what was Jamie Spencer doing? Like, isn't it a rule? And I think I heard a racing pundit talking about this. I don't know who it was, but there's a bit of a rule to, if you miss the start, you don't overwork your horse and try to get to a point where you were supposed to be before. You have to just take your medicine and sit out the back, and that's exactly what was not done with West Wind Blows. And with 400 metres left, the horse just had nothing else to give. So
yeah, the horse would have gone into its stalls that night having a pretty decent sleep, wouldn't it? Like after the Turnbull run, the Caulfield Cup run, just would have been absolutely knackered off both of them, and then comes out and has that as well.
Yeah, but look, I mean, that race was set up for West Wind Blows, and the form out of it, obviously, without a fight, going on to win the Melbourne Cup in absolutely stunning fashion too. That reamed me a little bit. I didn't think that was, very fair for punters, but it's just a test. Like, it's just basically outlining how horrible Jamie Spencer was for his time.
He hasn't had much luck here, that's for sure.
It's worse than luck. But
having said that, geez, I don't think anyone was beating a tissue in that champion stakes.
No.
That was a horse that was ready to peak and did exactly that.
No, and Chris Waller obviously knows how to get them going on their grand final day. So, all right, let's look at some previews now. We might chop and change a little bit, but we want to go through Cranbourne first, go through a few races, and I'm going to hand over to you straight away because you've put up, you've sent me your watch list, and obviously Watch List is a new feature on the Betfair app where you can share tips and comments to mates. It's absolutely fantastic. I've done it a couple of times. Shared not the best tips, but we'll be better for the run nevertheless.
And you know what? You can keep track of the losers if that's the case.
That's right.
Easy to keep track of.
But let's go through race one. I'm keen to start from the top of the card.
Yeah, it's a Cranbourne Classic. It's actually not a bad card at Cranbourne for the Cranbourne Cup on Saturday. There's still a couple hanging around. The Kembla meeting up in Sydney, there's a few more first up runners that are sort of coming back, looking for their summer campaigns. Whereas at Cranbourne, we've lucked out and we've got a lot of the horses still sticking on from spring. So keen in the first. Cranbourne's a really tight turning track, and the straight's only just over a couple of 100 metres long. So you sort of want to be drawn in and you want to be out. So this horse is drawn 10 of 10. So if it was drawn in, I think it'd be an absolute moral, but I think it's still going to be too good for him. A horse called Warmonger, who we already discussed earlier in the show, that beats Queen of Dragons on Cup Day. It's got these covered, I think, unquestionably. Sentimental Flame, Hydrogen Power, I think they're all under the odds. Sam Bookus is a roughie that I can have a little bit of. Got marked just in the single figures, and I think we're getting 20s or 30s about that horse. So not a bad roughie, but keen Warmonger around about that 5 to 4 mark in the first.
What do you think the Betfair market will do just prior to the race? Because obviously the horse currently is around the 235, 225 mark. Do you think you get a little bit of a drift on race day when, you know, punters are going to maybe question the wide barrier and even the weight against the other horses? I mean, it gives 6 kilos. Sorry, it's got 6 kilos more weight than basically all the
than
rest
every
of the
other
field.
horse. Yeah, I think you're going to have the knockers for those reasons. But I think the class is going to hold this horse. I can't really see it getting out any further than 6 to 4 in the market. It should be holding its price. It's got the right jockey on board for the right stable, and they know how to win him. And they wouldn't be here if they didn't think this horse could go on with it. So, good way to start the card, I reckon.
Yep, fair enough. We'll go over to race 2, and there's another couple of shorties in here, and you actually have gone the second favourite, gone with Wigham. Brave Mead, I thought potentially could have been a lay, but I don't know, he got the Jamie Spencer treatment a few starts back, so maybe that's why I'm a bit salty on the horse. But yeah, what do you think of that race at Cranbourne?
Yeah, race 2 over the 1200. It's probably got a bit of a tail, this one. I think there's probably only 2 that can win it, and they are the 2 in the market, Brave Mead and Wigham, both coming out of strong form lines. Peace Treaty's one that interests me slightly. Bo Merton's on board. It only had 1 start for 1 win. It was on a heavy 10, and with a bit of thunderstorms and rain around, I could entertain that horse at a price if the rain does come. But sitting here on a Thursday as we speak, I think Wigham's going to be really difficult to beat. It was a fantastic win again. Was on Cup Day, got up the inside, had come over from Adelaide and really put him to bed that day. I beat horses the likes of Barber and Stanislaus that day. So that sort of form here would absolutely brain them. Brave Mead has drawn 9, Wigham 5, so advantage Wigham there to get the inside draw. Wigham's only having its 4th start of the prep. Brave Mead has had a pretty tough prep already, having its 6th start here. 1200 up to 14, up to the mile, back to 14, and now back to 1200. It's not an ideal setup for this horse. And I've always found that Zara gets the best out of this horse, and Jamie Mott's on today. No knock on Jamie, but I would have liked to see Zara on this horse if I was going to part with some cash. So Wigham gets D Lane on board, going to be pretty hard to beat, I reckon. And given that we're actually getting better odds in the market than Brave Mead, I think it's a pretty good early bet.
I just want to ask you about that training prep. And I find Kieran Maher and Dave Eustace probably do it more than others, where they obviously target different distances in race, but have no issues with stepping their horses back in distance and changing their preps around just depending on how the horse is. How do you feel about that as a punter? Do you find that, you know, changing distance and something would correlate with potentially good performances, or, you know, are we potentially looking at that and saying, oh, that's a lay?
Oh, I think of it as a possible lay for as a country trainer I didn't know anything about, but if Maher and Eustace are happy to, I'm happy to follow him in.
I found specifically, I mean, talking about another horse in the same Oz bloodstock colours, the Melbourne Cup winner from last year, Gold Trip, had a bit of a preparation that was a bit back and forth. And I don't know, I felt like for a horse like that, maybe needed to have a little bit more of a consistent upgrade in distances and prep, rather than, you know, going to a Caulfield Cup, coming back to a Cox Plate distance over 2040, and then to a Melbourne Cup. Probably unstuck the horse a little bit. But I just want to ask you about Peace Treaty.
Yes.
Last start winner. What are your thoughts? Anything there?
Well, I mean, on debut was really impressive again. It was on that heavy 10 track. So looks really good. And if it reperforms, if she reperforms to that mark and like has jumped out reasonably well for this, you know, right in the market, I think I've got her marked, 770.
Yep.
So absolutely a chance. And that's based upon if the rain comes. If the rain doesn't come, I'm probably happy to just stick with the top two.
Yeah, perf. Well, we're going to go over to race 7 at Cranbourne. It's the John Duff & Co. The Leicester over 2,025 metres, if you don't mind. Benchmark 84. What are your thoughts here? Gregor Limo, obviously, was a bit of a bad beat in that last race on, was it?
Oaks Day.
Oaks Day, yep. What are your thoughts there, Liam?
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating race, this one, because if you're just watching the races and you're having a look, you'd think, well, geez, I want to be on Gregor Limo this start. Like, was very green, ducked back to the inside, and Holy Man's was a really good winner. You know, how is Holy Man's $8.50? But there's a few weight swings to be cautious of here, and that's why I've landed with Glentanius on top. It's actually out of the same race as those two. Gets a much better draw this time. Got back on that slow tempo last start and was given no chance. Gets a 5.5 kilo weight swing against Gregor Limo, gets 5.5 kilos off Holy Man's and 3.5 kilos off Gregor Limo, and obviously gets the much better run in transit this time. So I'm keen to be with Glentanius here, and the one I want to be with at odds is number 8 Flash Mary. Comes back to her home deck here at Cranbourne, trained by Alderson, and run a career peak 2 starts back here in the Pinker Plate at Cranbourne over this distance. Regressed about a length when it went to Cranbourne Cup last start, so I think getting back to this track with a bit more pace on in this one, I think Flash Mary around the $17, $18 mark is a really good rough play.
Fajita Sand was one that was a bit of a spruik last start. The punters wanted to come forward, but no chance there.
I put the pen through him. I said, never again. And then he got gelded and I said, all right, one more chance.
All right, well, that's going to be an interesting watch. Most of the horses coming out of that race have won or, you know, placed. So it's going to be a very, very competitive race. The Apache Cat Classic. Love this race, over the 1,000 metres. Interested to see who you're going to go with. Once again, it's going to be another competitive battle.
Yeah, and a fascinating tactical race, because the 1,000 metres at Cranbourne, you really want to be up on pace and you really want to be on the rail. And the natural leaders, Midwest and Jigsaw, who just go hell for leather from the start, they're drawn out in 6 and 7. So the tempo is going to be on here. A lot of these can win, so I'm looking a bit wider than normal. I'm going to stick with the Snowdens. Have just taken over a horse called Alicia Roma, number 10. It's had a couple of really nice jump outs, really good chance at, I think it's about $15. And it's going to have to take her medicine from out wide, try and find a spot in the run and come late. But at $15, I think you're getting a reasonable price there. I just think up front is going to be really, really tough work. Taunting and Jungle Gym chances as well. But yeah, really tough race. Keen to play at the odds for Alicia Roma.
Taunting's an interesting horse, isn't he?
Yeah, certainly is.
I've followed him along his journey, obviously trained by Michael Hickmott, and starts a pretty short price. He's got like a strong SP profile, but was always a horse that wanted to go to the next step and just quite hasn't been able to get the job done, right?
Also one of those horses that are extraordinarily hard to price because his peaks are really high, but then just throws in the towel so easily. Because I mean, it does happen a lot with those horses that like to sit on speed, and if they sit on a speed that's just too strong, they can't sustain it. So they end up rating 5-6 lengths down rather than those horses that sit midfield and generally finish around the same spot. So these are the sort of ones that you don't actually mind backing them or laying them the place, because they either win or they're going to drop out and run, midfield.
I mean, has been in good form. Currently around the $6 mark, probably get a little bit better on Betfair on the day, up I would have thought.
Yeah, I've got my favourite. I've
Yeah,
got
wow.
my 470 favourite, but it's such a tight field. Like I've got 470, Jungle Gym 650, Midwest 670, Rich Fortune 840. So it's just a really tight market at the top. So that's why
It's also getting
I'm the roughies.
8 kilos off Jigsaw, which is absolutely huge. And really, if a few things go differently, Taunting probably gets a weight like Jigsaw, with some with some wins in the past. So yeah, it's an interesting race. But we're going to move to the Cranbourne Cup. I think it's a pretty good race. I'm looking forward to it. I've always looked forward to the Cranbourne Cup. The crowd there on the rails go absolutely crazy. It's fantastic. But what are your thoughts on the Cranbourne Cup?
Oh, look, coming off spring, I don't think this really gets the blood pumping. I've ended up with Umgawa on top in a Cranbourne Cup, and that's a pretty scary proposition in itself. So, no, I don't think I'll be bouncing out of bed Saturday morning waiting for this one to kick off at 5 o'clock. But
You would be if you were at Cranbourne.
well, that's a potential. Even then, I think
In a tent somewhere with a couple of beers.
yeah, but
shouting
knowing I have
home
to get my
winners.
way to Cranbourne in itself, that makes it a bit of a tough proposition.
Nothing wrong with the Frankston line train.
Yeah, I'll have to take your word for that. But you know what? Would get my blood pumping if I find the winner. So Here to Shock's a horse of mine that I really like. I've got it marked around about market at the moment. Umgawa is one that I sort of didn't think was ever going to get the 1,500, 1,600 metres. And then I had a small bet on him at Moonee Valley last start on Manikato night. Should have won. Really should have went through the line really well to suggest that, you know what, the mile might not be beyond him. So we're getting a $9 there. Keen to play him early. And the other one I'm going to have a little bit of a throw at the stumps on is a horse called Riazan, number 8. Jai McNeil's on board over the mile, and ever since it's come to Australia early this year in the autumn, it's never really shown his best. And they put the blinkers on last start in the Sale Cup, and he rated, I think, about 3.5, 4 lengths better than his previous 5 starts. So I'm hoping that that's done the trick, and we're getting 40-1. So it's another throw at the stumps that we're going to have there in the time-honoured Cranbourne Cup.
A horse we were talking about just before the podcast started is Lord Vladivostok. Just give us a bit of a rundown on that horse. Obviously failed at Flemington last start. What do you make of another Michael Hickmott South Australian Raider?
Yeah, it was dynamic first up over the 1250 at Morphettville. I think it was pretty much a career peak run. And so you thought, well, we're in for a massive prep here. I've always been of the opinion that the Adelaide horses that come over don't quite tend to bring their ratings over and go as well in Melbourne. But obviously Melbourne Cup Day showed that they can do it. I think the Map was a horse that won really well that day coming over, and there was another in one of the subsequent races. And funnily enough, the Map's gone back to Morphettville on Saturday. Is going to be really hard to beat in race 5. But Lord Vladivostok probably hasn't reached that level again. Didn't have that much luck over the 1400 at Flemington, and then probably was just really plain last start over the 1800. Is a chance. I'd be very happy to lay at the current price. I think we're getting, I've got marked, $13 or so, $14 or something like that. So I'm happy to lay at current price. If it gets out, sure, I might be able to have something BSP, but I'm pretty happy to lay current price.
Yeah, rightio. That's good insight, Liam. Do you want to go over to Kembla Grange and have a chat about the Gong?
Yeah, we got the Gong over there. So, if we're talking lay-bin, going into Cranbourne and Kembla Grange straight after 1,000 Guineas and Sir Rupert Clarke Stakes Day isn't a great area to be in, but, you know, they're still running for prize money and and they all pay the same. So we'll have a look. Race 3 is the first race I want to talk about at Kembla. There's just absolutely zero pace in this race. So those that show a bit of initiative earlier on are probably going to be rewarded for that. And I've got With Your Blessing, with Josh Parr in the saddle. I've got him sitting a bit closer. Going to have a really good opportunity to win from there. A horse called Contemporary I was on last start was a really nice second, came home strong. Thought was going to win at about the 200 and then just petered on its run. If he had drawn in, if there was pace in this race, I would have said that he would be close to a moral. So they're the two that I'm keen on. Current prices, I'm going to back With Your Blessing, small, and then I'll be having a save a Contemporary late. But I think the race is between those two.
Yeah, perfect. And any other races, obviously, you want to chat about at Kembla?
Yeah, we've got to talk about the feature, the
You've got
Gong.
to talk about the Gong.
Yeah, so...
Thoughts on the Gong before you dive into it?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I can see what they're doing. I don't really like the sort of prize money that they're just blowing everywhere they can, because it's got to come from somewhere, and a lot of the time it comes from the punters, but that's a conversation for another day. They've managed to get a reasonable field here for this race for a Kembla Grange mile, and I think it's a case of are you with Osipenko or you're against, because Osipenko has this lot covered, but you know, it's a 4-year-old carrying 58.5 kilos, giving a couple of kilos to many of the fields. So where do you find it there? I think the way that Waller is, blinkers go on for the first time with this horse, has trialled since running in some of the absolute Group 1 classics. I mean, was behind Gold Trip, Mr. Brightside twice, Fangirl, so they're the right horses to be winning this. I think I can't possibly take the odds on offer at the moment. I think 350 or so, 340. I've got him marked $4. I'm hoping to get $4 because I've got him marked well ahead of the rest of the field, and if that happens, then I'll be smacking that. Spangler in the race, short double figure odds. Detonator Jack, Lock Eagle round out the top 4 hopes, but Osipenko for mine to come and show its class.
I just got a question about Osipenko and wanting the $4. So you obviously set your market or do your market prior to the race, and you've got Osipenko at $4. Currently, it's around 340 to 360 on Corps and Betfair. Obviously, you're looking for potentially a drift on the day at $4. Would you ever set your odds on Betfair at the $4 mark and put your stake in and be happy if it gets matched? But if it doesn't, you're obviously happy to let that one go through to the keeper?
Oh, it can work both ways, because if I have something on or I'm playing cricket or whatever have you on a Saturday and I can't be watching the market, then yeah, I'd do that. But I'd prefer to be able to watch the market and then in that last 10 minutes make my decision, because it gets to 380 and then in the last 5 minutes you actually see that the track is playing fairly, and you can see the run that Osipenko is going to get. You got J-Mac in the saddle and it goes 380 into 340. Well, you know what? At that stage, I'm actually probably happy to take 340 because of the market support late.
Yeah, interesting.
And even if that's the case, I'll probably end up just taking BSP and hoping you get a couple of extra rolls.
Yeah, right. That's great insight. We're going to head over to Ascot, and the Group 1s still roll on. I mean, obviously, the Gong and the Cranbourne Cup, we're not rolling out the red carpet for those races, but it is the Group 1 Railway
Before
Stakes.
we do that, I'm going to sneak in race 9 at Kembla. I've cooked you here. I've gone off the reservation, but I forgot to put this on the run sheet.
We don't mind this. Go on,
This
Clance.
is relaxed racing as we get post the carnival.
This is peak relaxed racing.
I think we got a really tremendous bet in the 9th at Kembla.
Oh, here we go. How do you let this one slip then?
Because I was too excited about it. Got to write it down. Race 9, number 5, Headwall. First up for Matty Smith. It's a 2-horse battle, this race. Emperor came out first up for Matty Dunn, was gelded and was phenomenal on Melbourne Cup Day up in Sydney. And I think he's being priced as a potential star, and it was a fantastic run first up, but that rating rated very similar to a lot of Headwall's ratings last preparation, and Headwall's gone to the trials this time in and looks to be in really good form. We're getting 550 versus 215, so I've got them marked very close together. If you can get above even money the place Headwall, I think it's a terrific bet, but I think it's a great value play for a winner. Race 9, number 5, Headwall.
Yeah, love that, Clance.
And you're more than welcome to take us to Ascot now.
we'll go to Ascot, but all of your bets and value will be in the show notes and in your watch list, which, looking forward to keeping an eye on. But we'll go to Ascot. We'll start at race 7. We're going to look at the 2 main races on the day. But race 7 is the Guineas, I think it is.
It is the WA Guineas, yeah.
The Group 2, it's actually a race I've quite enjoyed over the time. I'm keen to know who you're interested in here.
Yeah, so it's a race for the 3-year-olds, and I think it's between the 2 fillies. They've got this race shot to pieces. They've been racing against each other, Keshi Boom and Super Smink we're talking about. Keshi Boom is undefeated, going through the ranks, and I think 2 starts back, just went past Super Smink like he was nailed to the floor, like she was nailed to the floor. And Super Smink hasn't had a run since, whereas Keshi Boom's gone on one again. So, I mean, conventional thinking would have Keshi Boom pretty heavily on top, but we're talking a bit of a weight swing here. So Super Smink comes back 3.5 kilos, and Keshi Boom from that run goes up at 0.5 kilo. So it's a 4 kilo swing between 3-year-olds is a pretty decent swing. Obviously the pike tax has been applied to Keshi Boom already, but Super Smink is the one that I've got on top. Keen to follow. I think the market's got it about right at the moment. Got her marked 290. Of the roughies that I think a bit over the odds, the 1 and the 2 investment strategy and a lot of good men. Include them for the multiples, but I think it's probably just going to be a race in 2 to see who wins this, and I got Super Smink on top.
Yeah, likeable. I love the rivalry. I mean, it's not like a mean rivalry, but it's just a nice competitive rivalry between Chris Parnham and Willie Pike. They're always on the best horses in WA, so looking forward to that one. Speaking about Willie Pike, he has an incredible record in the Railway Stakes, which we're going to talk about, but he's won 4 of the last 5, and they've all been on Grand and Alana Williams horses. So he has the favourite in this race, Al Safina. You're keen to talk about it, but not in the most positive way.
No, I think we've got a really good lay opportunity here on Al Safina. Blinkers go on first time, Pike in the saddle, Grant and Alana Williams. There's a lot of ticks there, and I think that's why the market's probably got it where they do at the moment. What are we, 470?
460, 470
at time of record. Not saying this horse can't win, but it's just the wrong price early, because it just needs to improve too many lengths to be that sort of price. I mean, you're going to have to improve 3 lengths on current ratings, and that's just to get to a 4-to-1 shot. That's not to win the race. That's to be 4-to-1. So it could possibly win, but I want to be against it heavily at that price. So I'll be laying Al Safina. That'll be my lay of the day, but I'll also be laying the place as well, and keen to take that horse on.
Love that, Clancey. That's big from you.
Well, we'll see how we go.
I'm for it. I'm with you there. I haven't looked at this race in a lot of detail, but I think it's pretty clear due to the Grand and Alana Williams and Willie Pike combination there that the market sort of gravitated towards it a little. And there's some very good horses here. Like you're going to talk about Roots now.
For sure.
Who was absolutely super last start.
Yeah, we've got the East Coast Raiders now, right? So we've got Tuvalu coming over, who's a very well-established horse. And Roots, like a fantastic horse that had the blinkers go on last start, rated through the roof. It was a 2-length Korea Peak. And we just know how good Waller is at doing these sort of things and going over there. So I think the blinkers has helped massively. I've got Roots a pretty heavy favourite. I'd love to see the 17 Casino 17. I would love to see this horse get a run, because I think it's right in the race. Mark just double figures, but I think a really good value play if he happens to get a start down in the weights. And then Tuvalu, Dom to shoot next, and Al Safina 5th pick. So definitely keen to take on at that price, and we'll be having something small on Roots and Casino 17 if it manages to get a run.
I think in these big fields, 16 runners, and it's a fairly big field. It's obviously not your 24 horses in the Melbourne Cup, but I feel like anything can really happen here. You can't get stuck in the middle, otherwise you're going to need an absolute super ride coming into the straight. So I feel like the horses that are either leading, if there's any leader bias, are going to be favoured, but also the swoopers at the back. And I find that at Ascot, I mean, it was in the Placid Arc only on Saturday where Ripcord just ripped them to absolute shreds. It hit 890 in play.
Yeah.
Clancey. I feel like that happens at Ascot a fair bit.
Well, that's generally where Pikey tends to get to in the run. I think he just finds that fast lane over there at Ascot. I've many times in the past I've just gone, no, I'm just going to lay every Willie Pike runner, and that's why I was eating 2-minute noodles for quite some time.
2-minute noodles aren't good for you, Clancey.
Yeah, but
do you know the thing about 2-minute noodles? How like apparently the noodles don't break down in your body like for years it takes.
That's all right. They're only small. They can come through on their own.
Layback with Betfair health lesson for Clancey. I know you just mentioned Forgot You, but last start winner. and has won some big races. Obviously, it's a good horse. Obviously, had to come back from some pretty serious injury issues, but gets Daniel Moore, who knows the horse very well. $16 currently with some corporates, and you're obviously going to get more with Betfair on the day. But what price are you backing for Got You?
I probably need 20 to 1.
Yep.
Just because of the draw. I think this horse would be right in it had it drawn a gate, but it's just going to need so much luck in running. Has been super consistent since it had that EIPH 3 starts back at Caulfield. Going really well. Just needs so much luck from that draw. But yeah, in the race, if you like it, you just got to back Daniel Moore there.
Yeah, 100%. He knows the horse, so yeah, he's someone that can get the job done. All right, we're going to go back to school. We're going to do a bit of lay betting education, very relaxed. One thing I'm always interested in chatting to different punters, and that's why I love the Betfair events, because you get to talk to some of these pros and stuff like that. And one question I always like to ask is, what's your lay betting strategy? And I'm going to ask that to you. Where do you find yourself laying a horse on Betfair? Is it the false favourites, or are you looking to do it in play? What's the strategy that goes behind your lay betting thinking?
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess like the in play laying is it's a different challenge and a different sport in and of itself. I think if you're an in play punter, you analyse the race a lot more and the formation of the race and where you see your speed map. So I think that's probably not where I find myself. So I'll leave that to the experts there. In terms of how I lay up, I produce my own ratings for a race, and then any overlays, any horse that I've got marked a lot bigger than the market has, that's where I'll generally tend to lay. For example, we've just talked about Alsafina, got marked in the double figure range, is currently 470. So that's a lay I'm happy to have. 470 is about the upper echelon of where I want to be laying, just for liability's sake. So that's why I tend to gravitate to laying those horses the place, because you end up laying it 220, 230, and it's a lot more comfortable range for liability's sake. And even if I've got a horse such as that I'm keen to take on, then I look at the other markets that we offer, such as like 2 places, 3 places, 4 places, head-to-heads, that sort of thing. So, I mean, a head-to-head, you're generally not going to lay at anything more than $2.10, $2.20, depending on who the other head-to-head is. But so your liability is so much less. But if it's a horse you're keen to take on, you can actually find some really good value there. So, yeah, for things that I'm keen to lay, as I said, don't really want to be laying anything more than $5. Just work from there.
Talk to me about setting your odds and setting potential lay traps. I mean, maybe this isn't something that you do, but for insight's sake, if you know a horse needs to be in the lead, say, let's use West Wind Blows as the example, misses the start, or even Salcombe in the Melbourne Cup, obviously, and previous races is a horse that misses the start. Obviously, when a horse misses the start, the market reacts and will drift, or in other cases shorten if they're supposed to be there and they get there easy. Do you ever set back or lay traps in play if you're not willing to back a horse at the BSP or the price pre-race, but if you think it's going to drift a little bit in play? Do you ever set any traps to obviously be activated during a run?
Not really in that sense, but what I do like to do is if I've got a horse that I really like, but so much of it is dependent on, it's a wide barrier, or it needs to find the rail, or it needs to find the lead, something like that, then I won't back it pre-race, but I'll wait until the first 50 metres goes, and then I'll jump on board if we find ourselves in the right spot. I mean, classic example of that was Caulfield Cup Day and Coeur Volant. I can't remember what the race was. But it was the lead up. I think it might have been the 1,000 Guineas Prelude. And it was barrier 15. Just looked like it was never going to be able to find a spot, and just they hunted out of the gates and ended up getting the 1-1. And instead of taking the $5 pre-race, you take $4, but you've got the knowledge that you're in the right spot, right? Like that's
more confidence.
That's a great $4 play.
Yeah, 100%.
When you're one out, one back, because the $5 is taken into account the barrier position and
100%.
and the unlikeliness of getting there. And another horse, I can't remember what its name. It was in Sydney running a couple of weeks ago, and it's missed the jump its last 3 starts. It's gone back to the barrier trials, hasn't shown great barrier manners, but every time it's got out, it's Junquira, I think the name was.
Yeah, that's right.
and every time it's shown good barrier manners and got out, it's rated through the roof. So that's one that you've got no confidence in backing pre-race, but if it jumps with them, then you're keen to be on. So it's a bit different to laying in the run, but it's having a bit more confidence when your horse finds the position you want.
And we'll talk about, you talk about favourites and false favourites. False favourites happen probably a fair bit according to your ratings. Just specifically talking about the Melbourne Cup Carnival, like unbelievable. There was only 7 favourites that won for the whole carnival, and that's the least amount of favourites since 2016. And if you laid every single horse across the carnival and had a $100 liability, you would have made a profit of $405 or just a little bit over. But that's crazy considering that, considering that there's so many races and so many obviously short price favourites, that there's opportunities there to potentially lay. Yeah,
for sure. I think favourites in the Spring Carnival, there's a bit of a different proposition because they're coming up against some very, very good horses. And that's why you get a lot of the favourites in the Spring Carnival actually much bigger prices than the rest of the year because they're bigger fields and stronger horses. I think you get some favourites that they're still $5-6, right? So that the market's saying, like if it's a $6 shot, the market's saying it's a 17% chance of winning, right? And that's to 100%. So 17% chance, there's not many things that get up when there's 17% chance, but it is a favourite that's been beaten. So that's obviously, if you follow that strategy tried and true, you're going to be doing pretty well. It's not as fun, but it's very savvy, right? And that way you don't really have to do all the form leading into it. You just set and forget, as you'd say. 100%.
Well, that was an awesome seg. I'm looking forward to listening to you guys talk about different bits and pieces and putting your opinions across about what you actually do in terms of strategy on the exchange. Because the amazing thing about Betfair is there's so many things that you can do. You can back, lay, trade. You can do that in play. So, with so many possibilities, it's great to have a chat about all the things you can do. And I love learning about them, to be honest. We're going to go into a top 5, right? I'm going to ask you a top 5. I hope you've prepared. We'll get through it quickly, but I want to know your top 5 performances of the spring.
Yes.
And this is completely your opinion. I've even got some thoughts. But start off with 1 being the best.
Yep.
Start off with your number 5. Go for it.
Number 5 is, and it pains me to say, but I'm going to say Zardozi in the Oaks. I think that was just a phenomenal effort. For a 3-year-old filly to come out and brain them like that, I say it was very painful because, of course, I was on Zardozi on Derby Day where I just couldn't quite get over the top of Amazonian Lass, I think it was. But to see her come out next start, it sort of gives you a bit of confidence because you're like, you know what, we're on the right horse.
Yep.
Just didn't get the right conditions on the day, but she was phenomenal. 3 and 4, we're going to tie together.
Okay.
Because number 4 and number 3 are Mark Zara and Without a Fight, and I think they come together. They're hand in hand. Zara had an unenviable decision to make in terms of taking Gold Trip or Without a Fight into the Cup. Made a terrific choice, and I don't think since 2001 any horses won the Melbourne Cup, Caulfield Cup double. So very, very difficult to leave this horse out of the top 5 performances of the spring. Probably should be number 1, but I'm biased here, so I'm gonna leave a couple of others for 1 and 2.
This is you.
Number 2, Pride of Jenny. Isn't she just the absolute pin-up horse for the roughy backers of the spring?
Absolutely.
That Empire Rose form with Pride of Jenny winning again in the Champions Stakes, and then a Tissue winning in the mile, and then a Tissue winning the Stakes was phenomenal. So Pride of Jenny, tough war horse out in front. And number 1 of the spring has to be Imperatriz, the sprinting star. There's an obvious omission of Think About It, which I want anywhere near my top 5 because it's caned my bank account, as we talked about. So Imperatriz number 1, Pride of Jenny 2, Without a Fight and Zara 3 and 4, and number 5 Zardozi.
Love it. Any honourable mentions?
Well, Think About It gets an honourable mention because it's a very, very good horse on its way up. But that's as much as I'm giving that horse. You
had similar to me, but I threw a couple of almost roughies in the performances of the spring. 2 I just want to talk about is Shiraz in the Melbourne Cup. Like, no one expected Shiraz to place in the Melbourne Cup. Her BSP was $197.
Yeah, and I would have said that wasn't big enough at the time too.
And the top tote was $83.
Yeah.
And it runs a place. I think that's absolutely incredible. And a great story, because we were on the layback with Betfair grand final show, or Melbourne Cup show. We spent a minute on the horse. There was not one bet placed at call of the card on the horse.
Yeah, pretty phenomenal.
Win or place, and it goes out and has an absolutely amazing run and comes third. So
and
beats,
killed so many exotic bets all around the
yeah,
country.
all made
Yeah,
them
true.
for obviously the minority there.
For all the mystery punters.
Yeah, the mystery punters. The other one, just really quickly, is Najam Sahel. So I love horses that back up, and we spoke about Pride of Jenny. Came third in the Rising Fast Stakes. I think Zach Spain rode that horse and just bolted out in front.
Yeah.
But was tough enough to hold on for third, and I thought that was a really game third. Loses to Spacewalk in that race, and then comes out next start in the Century Stakes and turns the table on Spacewalk. And that's the sort of rivalry I love between horses. And both of the horses backed up. They were tough. Spacewalk probably a bit of a bad beat, but yeah, fantastic for the punters that found Najam Sahel in that race. Did you find the horse?
Nah, didn't back anything in that race, but I know Footy loves that horse. He'll follow it to the edge of the earth, I reckon.
He certainly does. Quickly on the watch list, we'll leave it in the show notes, but have you got best bets for us from the watch list?
Yeah, best bet. We're tossing up between a few. I think Wiggum's a terrific play in race 2, Cranbourne. Warmonger should kick us off on the right foot, and that Adelaide horse we touched on very briefly, race 5, the Map, coming back from a great Flemington win. It's got the claimer on board to offset the extra weight. I think it's going to be really hard to bet as well.
Yep, love it. Final segment to finish off. So the likes of Jason Campbell, he's obviously a contributor. He does greyhound racing for Betfair. Shane Churlio, Balla Anderson, Jackson Oldham. These guys have had amazing lay streaks, right? And I love these lay streaks. Particularly Jason's had he finished a lay streak of 22, and then obviously one of his best lays ended up winning. But then he went again and had another 22 in a row. He's just the lay god. Well done to Jason. Incredible punting, finding those lays. But one thing I just love is finding a lay streak. So I thought we'd start a new segment, and we call it Lay Streak. Simple as that. And we're both going to put a lay out there. We're going to give it $100 liability and roll that on to next week with our winnings. If the horse loses,
yeah,
just
cross
to
your
make
fingers
sure.
there, mate. Touch wood.
Cross your fingers there, but we'll roll them over. And we'll start off with you. This is going to be our number one.
Yep.
Who are you laying this week?
Well, we've already spoken about it, but Ascot race 8, number 7, Alsafina. That's going to have to be my lay of the day for Saturday, and hopefully it kicks us off on the right foot.
All right, so we're only laying the win there, but I know you're also going to lay the place. So
I'm not gutsy enough to lay the place for this comp.
We'll see what happens. I struggled to find a lay. I also wanted to lay Alsafina for the same reasons as you, but just to go a little bit different. Had a look at Lord Vladivostok, and obviously he's a massive price. I'm not going to lay it the $16, but I will lay the place. I think the horse is in a very competitive field, and yeah, I think probably ready to go back to South Australia, and we'll miss a placing there. Although it's been racing okay, I think it'll miss the place.
Like it.
Fingers crossed. We'll look at those results in BSP, and then hopefully come back and have 2 on the board.
Fingers crossed.
Get a few more before Christmas. Well, absolute pleasure, Clarence. I really enjoyed chatting to the equine genius.
Little relaxed racing Thursday afternoon for you.
Yeah, maybe next week we have some mojitos or pina coladas or something on the desk. It's very relaxing.
Sound of that. Might have to turn the cameras off.
Thank you everyone for watching and listening, and we'll chat to you. See you next week.
chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.